Fire Away tackles burning questions and hot topics in Canadian employment law, human resources, and dispute resolution. Hosted by Rudner Law, Fire Away is your go-to source for legal insight on the world of work. So whether you are an employee or an employer, a lawyer or an HR pro, let's ignite the conversation and get into today's episode. Here's your host, employment lawyer, mediator, and founder of Rudner Law, Stuart Rudner.
All right, welcome to episode 92 of Fire Away. I'm very excited today to talk about podcasting and other tools for marketing in 2025. And I am super excited to have two guests join me today. So first of all, we've got Jared Correia, who is the founder and CEO of Red Cave Law Firm Consulting. Jared is a former practicing lawyer who's been a business management consultant for law firms since 2008. He was the host of the Legal Toolkit podcast for 16 years. Now the host of the Legal Late Night, as well as the Adventures in Legal Tech podcast. And Jared, I feel like I've been watching and listening and reading about you for the vast majority of my career. So you are a celebrity in my world. And I really appreciate the fact that you're taking the time to join us today.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm glad you're not annoyed yet.
If I'm not yet, it's probably not going to happen. So
right, good. Okay.
I really,
thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. And also joined by Mark Robins, who is no stranger to the show, CEO of Lawyer Locate, LegalTube.ca, mspace.ca, as well as the host and executive producer of the LegalTube podcast, and of course, the producer of this podcast. So Mark, I won't thank you for joining us since you had to be here anyways, but I appreciate you coming on this side of the camera and sharing some of your thoughts today as well.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thanks, Stuart.
So, actually, I got to do this before we get into it, Jared. I'm going to steal a line from your podcast that I think you use every episode these days, which is, I will promise that this podcast will be mildly interesting, which I thought was probably the classic under promise and over deliver if I've ever heard it.
My producer does not like that.
We're going to find out very soon if mine does or not. So we'll see what happens. So you've been consultant for law firms for quite a long time. Now, I guess where we want to start, because we want to talk about podcasting and other tools that firms are using. Like, what are you telling law firms now about podcasting, social media, et cetera, and what they should be doing?
Yeah, I guess a couple things. So broadly speaking, I think the content marketing stuff is more important than it's ever been, especially with all the Google algorithm changes and the AI features that are now in search. Content's more important than ever. And I like audio and video content because I can pull so much out of it. I can grab a transcript. I can turn that into several different articles. I've got a whole bunch of different places where I can post that. And I tell lawyers, I think it's helpful to have an anchor content that you focus on, because I think when you tell attorneys hey, you got to do these 17 different things to generate content, they're like, I'm not doing any of that. That sounds terrible. So for me, a lot of my stuff is podcast based because it's easy to do. I used to write a lot, but then I found that writing was a lot of work, and I can just get in front of a microphone and just talk for a half an hour every time. Great, I'm all for that. So I'm a big advocate of podcasting for attorneys. And, I think a lot of people, when they talk to me about podcasting, I've had a show since 2009. So that was early days. So we built up a pretty big audience. And I think people are like, well, the show's never going to get as big as that. And I'm like, that doesn't matter for you. You're trying to get referrals. You're trying to get clients to come in and talk to you. And you don't need a huge audience for that. You're geographically bound to certain areas anyway as an attorney. So once I can convince them that it's a different type of show. If you have a show where you just interview local business people, that might be good enough for you. Managing those expectations, I think, is helpful to get people started. That's kind of what I'm talking to people about now.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense. And I love your comment about writing. And I guess now we can, of course, use AI. So you can talk for half an hour and have AI turn it into a million different things as well, including an article.
Don't have to write ever again.
Yeah, so maybe we can get more into that. But I'm curious, and Mark, I want you to chime in as well. First of all, you were obviously way ahead of the curve, and I think I'm probably more tech friendly than most lawyers tend to be.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But I'm sure you get this all the time, and Mark, you as well. What about the lawyers or other people? I mean, just so you know, Jared, I mean, our audience tends to be more HR folks because my practice is employment law, as
Yeah.
well as business owners and some lawyers. So this most of this applies to everyone, not just lawyers. But what about the people who say, "Oh, I don't want to be in front of a camera or behind a microphone"? How do you get around that?
I push them aggressively. No.
Exactly. Yeah. You know what? You mentioned that, and I'm going to use some of your history, Stuart, because I've told some of these stories in the past. When we talked to you and convinced you to maybe try this podcasting thing, you were a guest on a couple of other shows that I produced, and that kind of gave you a bit of a taste for it. But I remember the first show that we did, and we taped it in your boardroom in Markham. And I remember it was the most painful show we ever did because you were very stiff, very uncomfortable, very kind of trying to be Hollywoodish. And once we got through that episode, I remember the next few times we were doing stuff, it was all about relaxing you. And I was taking things away from you. I would take away your notes. I said, "You're not using notes." I would take away any scripting ideas. I said, "That's not going to work. We're going to have a conversation. You're going to have flubs. That's great. I want the flubs. It adds interest. It draws audience." And since then, so we're what, year 8 on that, I
Eight.
think.
Yep,
So
eight.
8 years, we're over 91 episodes, and you have become, in my opinion, not because I work for you, the one of the most polished people in the legal industry doing podcasts. It's just it runs so smoothly. But to answer your question, the challenge I have when I have lawyers that I'm saying you have to stop blogging. Like, please understand, nobody's reading your blogs. And if I go and I put this to the test for 20 years, who's reading your blog? Go look at the comments. Oh, it's other bloggers, not customers. Like, so it's kind of like a circle that's going on. So trying to convince people, lawyers in particular, right? And you're right, Jared, that the whole landscape has changed. The way the algorithms work and the new changes that are coming from Google and the AI impact. Video is king. I don't care what anybody says. Video right now is king. Google themselves now are ranking YouTube as a higher used search engine than Google. That tells me something. It should tell us all something.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you can't see me right now with my notes on this side, but
Uh-oh.
anyways, I do appreciate the kind words, and it is a lot more fun, and it's also fun with guests that are kind of easygoing like the two of you guys are, where we can have a lot of fun with the show.
I
But we
feel
got
like
to
Mark
pick up
brought that
point.
back pretty good though. Mark was like,
Uh,
"Stuart, you were horrible, but now you're great."
Jared,
I
I'm a retired private investigator of 30 years, so I tend to not suffer, saying stuff being very blunt. It kind of is second nature to me.
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
I've
can I
known
just say
Mark
briefly,
long enough to
like,
know he doesn't sugarcoat things. Sorry, Jared.
but no, but I think Mark makes a good point. Is that like, I find that a lot of people when they start getting into video stuff, like their crutch is they want to script everything, and they want to read either from a teleprompter or from a piece of paper in front of them, and that's not really compelling. And it takes a little while to get people out of that. But I find that that's everybody's first response. And I will tell you, I've had guests come on my shows sometimes where they're clearly reading from a piece of paper, and I'm just like, "We're not recording this today, or I'm not
Right.
publishing this. You got to come back, and you got to be willing to talk with me."
Yeah. Well, and look, lawyers are terrible. And look, kidding aside, I've got a couple of notes here of things I want to cover. But yeah, like we never wanted the show to be scripted, and we want it to be a conversation. And yeah, the first few were a lot stiffer than they have been since then. And now I can be a lot more relaxed. But I want to come back
Yeah.
to what you guys were saying about blogs, though. And as Mark, as you know, I mean, our firm, we still have our firm blog. We still run a blog for Canadian HR law. We still contribute to other blogs. So and I enjoy doing that. I'm not sure the rest of our team does. But is that something that's still worth doing in 2025, or is it really all about the video?
Wait, Mark, go ahead because I know you got thoughts on this, and I can jump
Well,
in.
there's a balance here. When I know because of my own shows, I've done a lot of talking about. I know. Do you know Kevin O'Keefe, Jared?
Oh yes, I know Kevin
Okay, so
O'Keefe very
Kevin and
well.
I go back 20, 30 years. And I had met him at an LMA function in Toronto when I was living in Ontario. And Kevin and I have had this running debate on this very topic for almost 20 years.
Kevin loves
That,
blogs.
yeah, and I told him, I said, 20 years ago, I said, the future online is not going to be blogging. It's going to be, well, then we called it vlogging, right? Video.
Yes.
And I said, that's it. And he's no way. That'll never replace blogs. And that's where the conversation about, well, who's reading your blog? I love Flexblog. I think it's a brilliant operation. I think what they do is wonderful. But fast forward to today, guess who's got a podcast? Guess who's on video all the time now, right? And I had him as a guest on my show last year, and we talked all about that. And he says, you were right. He said, but I couldn't see the forest for the trees. So back to the question, is blogging important? I think it's still content, so it has some value. Is it going to be the value that it was 20 years ago? No, because it's sad to say this. People have they don't want to read. I debate this with my wife. I go, if I want instructions for something, I go to YouTube. Like, I'd rather have somebody show me how to fix whatever it is I'm trying to fix. My wife's the polar opposite. I would never do that. I will go find the manual and I will read it.
But she's in the minority. I think you're right. So just to be clear, like, if you're calling your company Lex Blog, you're kind of pot committed at that point. You kind of have to be like, blogs are amazing. But I agree, Mark, in that, like, you've got to, like, I tell people, like, okay, how do you want to succeed if you want to do content marketing? Well, it'd be amazing if you could write like a blog every day and put out a podcast every day and post every day. Like, the frequency is better. But realistically, nobody's going to do that, at least not right now. Content at some point may just be AIs talking to each other, really. But I think you're right. Like, if you look at not just search, but if you look at the applications that people use for social networking, like LinkedIn, for example, like everything, like video is heavily favored on those platforms now. And you see everybody posting videos. And I think you're right. Like, nobody reads anymore. They want audio, they want video. Or if they're reading, they're generally reading in communication with a generative AI app that they can talk to. So it's a wholly different model.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, I'll push back a little bit because I do still get feedback from those in HR who say, I still read your blog and they'll comment on specific blog posts we do. So at least in the HR world, which of course is my key market, I do think some people are still reading, but yeah, like, clearly there's
That's
change.
good.
I guess that's one thing we struggle.
Yeah.
And that's what I always, because I think there would be a huge celebration at Rudner Law if I said to all of our associates, you don't have to write blog posts anymore. So in a way, I would love to do that, but I'm still reluctant to because I think there's some value in it. But clearly, we're doing fewer blog posts. We're doing a lot more video for all the reasons you guys have said. It's a really shifting landscape, and that just makes sense. I mean, if we're still doing the same thing we did 20 years ago, there'd be a really big problem.
Right. And like, even if you're doing video, you still may have just an audio podcast on a format that doesn't support video. And some people read through the transcripts. So, I mean, I tell people all the time, like, the more stuff you can do, the more variety of content you can produce, the better. But video should absolutely be one of the primary things you're working on.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I want to come back, and this is, I guess, a bit of self-help for some people, because like you said, a lot of people are really, they need a script. But I've talked to so many lawyers, and you guys have probably talked to many more, who are just terrified, even blogging, because they're terrified of getting it wrong. They're going to say the wrong thing. Someone is going to call them out for somehow getting the law wrong. And so they'll agonize for 3 hours over a 4-line LinkedIn post. So what do you tell people like that?
The first thing I tell them is, you're not that important. And in all seriousness, like, if you're blogging tomorrow, it's not like you have this massive audience who's going to be like, oh man, did you see what Brian wrote the other day? What an idiot. Like, that's not going to happen. You're going to build up an audience over time. And generally, like, I put a lot of content out there. Generally speaking, for the most part, I think people are pretty good about stuff they write. Now, there are some haters out there, but that's part of the deal. And to me, that's a good thing. if you're starting to get negative comments on your stuff, that means you have a wider audience than you had before. And part of it is letting it roll off your back. And a lot of attorneys don't want to do that. Um, but I agree about the perfectionism thing. Like perfectionism is a huge deal for attorneys, and it takes a lot for lawyers to get over that. Um, I guess I would say also, like, I don't know if you guys see this, but the other thing I see with people is, not just the perfectionism thing, but also what you talked about before, the authenticity thing. Like, can I write something, get it right, and do it in a way that's kind of in my own voice, that's authentic to me, that doesn't make me sound like everybody else? I think that's an issue that a lot of people have because they're trying to not only be perfect, but part of that is like suppressing themselves to be like some idea of how an attorney should act, which is not necessarily what is reflective of their personality. I don't know if you guys see that also. That's a big thing that I encounter.
Yeah, if I can weigh in on that, working backwards, comments. I've had other clients, not Stuart, that get
Stuart
totally
doesn't care. Come at
bent
him.
out of shape.
Sorry.
Yeah, totally bent out of shape if there's a negative comment on a video that they did or a blog they did or anything they've posted in social media. And I get to where I said, do yourself a favor, stop looking at the comments. Forget it. It's not important. Oh, but I got to answer. No, you don't have to answer them. You don't have to answer a comment at all. It's good if you can, but it's not crucial if you answer every comment or very quick. So that's kind of the first thing that I get through with them. And like you said, lawyers, I find it funny, and I try a little, amateur psychology with them when it's like, well, I want a script, I want this, and then and say, you stand up, I'll use a criminal lawyer as an example because they're in courtrooms all the time. You stand up, you don't have a script. You've read your file, you have what you are planning to talk about, and you've worked through what you're going to do in cross examinations. Why is it all of a sudden, if I put a camera on you and a microphone in front of you, you're lost? You can't do it. And eventually that sort of works through and it goes, oh, okay, that makes sense. Because of my past as an investigator, I've seen trial lawyers and how they function. They're not using scripts. They've been doing it for so long, it's second nature. And I'm just trying to say what this can be is just an extension of what you already do every day in court.
Yeah, it's a great way to look at it. I don't know. I find I was just Googling this while you were talking, Mark, because this brings to mind, like, I wrote a book for the ABA a while back about Twitter when it was called Twitter.
Yeah.
And somebody just like completely obliterated the book on Amazon. One of the most hateful reviews I've ever read. And it was just so over the top that I thought it was hilarious. So when I was talking to people about the book, I would read the review because it was so bad. So you can kind of take that and own it a little bit too. Unfortunately, I can't find it right now, but if I can dig it up, I'll let you know.
You do send it to us.
Yeah, but Jared, that's totally you, just from everything I've seen over the years. Like you
Oh,
will
yeah.
take it, you'll read it, you'll laugh about it, and you'll own it, which
Yeah.
is great. But yeah,
And
I've
I know
also had,
not everybody can do that, but people are capable of doing that. Like they're capable of training themselves to be that way. Yeah, go ahead, Stuart. Sorry.
yeah, no worries. But yeah, well, look, a lot. Let's be candid. A lot of lawyers and a lot of people just take themselves too seriously. I think it's really
Yeah.
important to take what you do seriously, and I think all of us do that. But I'm not sure we take ourselves as seriously. So yeah, owning a
Right.
bad review, a bad comment. Like I've had some negative comments, and I like to respond to most of them. I mean, some of them, once they start to get into government conspiracy theories and that kind of thing, I usually ignore them. But there were a couple recently that I did a video on the whole Coldplay incident,
Oh yeah.
which is one of the funniest things to happen in the world of HR recently. But even there, we got some comments about the it wasn't quite conspiracy theory, but it was along those lines. But anyways, it kind of gets back to one of the things I was going to ask you about, Jared, which is, and I said this at the outset, like you are very, very relaxed, informal, joking around. Like some of the stuff I've just heard you do in recent podcasts on your late night one, you're asking people like your favorite ice cream flavor and talking about
Yeah.
misheard lyrics, which I want to come back to because we can compare
Oh,
favorite misheard
exciting.
lyrics.
Yeah.
And you talk about your Spotify playlists and all that, which I love.
Mm.
I'm curious to know if you ever get any feedback. Like, do some people, because you're marketing to lawyers, so are there
I
lawyers who think, well, that's not quite serious enough for me?
oh yeah, absolutely. Um, and so the Coldplay thing, just quickly. Was that like the greatest gift to employment lawyers in the history of employment lawyers? I feel like that's amazing. Like, why do you need employment lawyers? Well, here you go. Um, I traditionally, historically, up until now, I've gotten a lot of attorneys who are like, you're not serious enough, you're not taking the work seriously, like this is a serious profession. I don't give a shit, frankly. Like I just like being myself. And I have found that far more people, like I would say like 99% to 1% are like, this is interesting. And it's cool that we can talk about legal, AI, technology, law practice management, but that also every now and then we can blend in some other things as well. And kind of the thesis, I work with a really great producer on my podcast as well. Um, Part of our thesis is lawyers are people. Anybody who listens to a podcast who has a job is a person and they have interests outside of what we're talking about. So let's address that and delve into it a little bit. And if somebody's like you're not serious enough, you're too flippant, like I don't want them in the audience anyway. I'm perfectly fine if we don't have like 100% of lawyers listening to the show. We're never going to get there anyway. So to me, like it's really important to deliver more of a broad base of information, call it infotainment. And I think generally speaking, people like it better. Now on the flip side, I I made a decision early on that I'm really interested in music. I listen to a lot of music, and I'm like, hey, we're gonna have some music elements on the show. We've had musical guests on the show who perform for us who are like Rock and Roll Hall of Fame members. I do
Nice.
playlists for every episode. We do album reviews, and I've had people who've sent me like mix CDs and Spotify playlists. It's like, hey, I like this, but like, have you heard these songs as well? And I think it's just another way to build your audience.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, now I'm gonna have to put together a playlist for you.
Yes, please do. I will listen to it.
I love it. I'm not sure I'm as big a Who fan as you are, but
Oh,
yeah,
all right. Well, we can agree to disagree.
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
I,
whoa! Stop! I got to jump in.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
You're a Who fan?
Yes, I did a
Okay,
whole
so I've seen
segment
them
on the
seven
Who
times. I've
recently.
seen
Oh,
seven performances. Six were the last performance they were ever going to do. We're all familiar with that. So,
the
but
farewell
and
tour.
just going back to what you were just saying, one, I want to know, have you been using some spyware or have you been infiltrating my office? Because your philosophy is identical, and Stuart will back me on this, to
yeah,
what I tell my clients like Stuart. You got to be human, you got to be yourself, and don't just talk about employment law. When we got
right.
him onto TikTok, it was actually his staff came to us and said, well, what about this TikTok thing? Like, what do we, and I frankly didn't know much about it at the time. It wasn't a platform I was used to. I dove into it and I said, I could see where it would work on the basis of not necessarily being about law, but about being yourself, about exposing the public to who's Stuart outside of the office. And we kind of ran with that, and that's the way we'll still use TikTok to put up some relevant employment law stuff and videos, but for the most part, I encourage Stuart, like, go, like, one of the things he's been doing lately is his son's a goaltender at a junior level. So he does these TikToks about, life of a hockey dad or a goaltender dad, and they're great spots.
That's
The
awesome.
one he's talking about, the Coldplay, that went up on TikTok and got lots of traction. So it is about, like, you're this on the same page as me. To me, it's not so much about presenting yourself as a stiff, I'm the number one lawyer. It's more about presenting yourself as, I'm a good lawyer, but I've also got a life, and I
Right.
want to share some of these aspects of my life.
I'm glad we've so people are listening. I think I'm the only non-Canadian on this podcast, which is why we're not talking about goaltending. So
Our last American guest made a really clear effort to reference hockey at least 3 or 4 times during the podcast. So, Jared, you're really not holding up your end of the bargain here.
I don't know very much about hockey. So not my space to play usually.
That's fair enough. You got enough other spaces. Actually know what? Speaking of, like, well, I guess who I am, and people who know me know that in addition to being a lawyer and a hockey dad, I'm also a huge Disney fan, and our family are a huge Disney family.
I didn't know that.
Oh, well, I got to start putting that more into my my TikToks and everything else then.
It's
But
amazing.
you said something in a podcast a few weeks ago. I made a note of it because once I knew you were going to come on my show, I wanted to ask you because you made some reference, and tell me if I got it totally wrong, to enjoying watching newbie dads fall off the bus at Disney World. And
All right.
I have to admit, I wasn't quite sure what you were referring to.
All right, there's this small, let me give you a small backstory. I promise it'll be quick. My wife is a travel agent and she books Disney stuff all the time. She's been to Disney like 4 or 5 times this year already. To the
This
point where
year.
I'm like, yeah, to the point where I'm like, I think I'm gonna take my daughter to Disney. And she's like, yeah, I'll stay home. But yeah, so we've been to Disney like a bunch of times. But yeah, it is what it sounds like. One of my favorite things going to Disney World, there's always a dad who's got like two, three little kids, and they have these giant strollers, and they're trying to fold them up to get off at the bus stop at a different park, and they can't do it fast enough, and sometimes they just like fall out of the bus onto the stroller and totally eat it. And I could sit on the Disney buses like all day and watch that. I'm a bad person, but I really enjoy that. So no, you did
Now
not
I
miss
got
that.
it.
It's exactly what it sounded like.
Yeah, now I get it, and it makes total sense. And I haven't been to Disney 4 or 5 times this year, but yeah, we laugh because my daughter, who's almost 23, I think she's been to Disney 20 times. So
Wow.
we certainly go often enough. But and I could spend all day there, maybe not riding the buses, but sitting on Main Street would probably be more my speed.
Customer service at Disney is just amazing. I love going down there. Everything's great. It's a little bubble.
Oh, you know, it's fascinating. I didn't know, my sister who did a management course, I guess Disney does management courses and, they
Yeah.
talk about customer service. And we've spent a lot of time, I'm sure, well, I'm drawing a blank on his name now, Jack, the owner of Clio, Jack Newton.
Oh, Chag Newton. Yeah.
Yeah, who's written a book all about the client-centered law firm and customer service and customer experience. So I often refer to Disney in terms of how Disney deals with unhappy guests or customers, and the way they do it is so, for the most part, is so phenomenal because you take someone who's unhappy and make them into someone who will become your champion. And
Right.
I'm happy to say I've done that a few times where I've had, client complaints, and instead of ignoring it or reaching out and just escalating, I've reached out and talked it through. And even if we agree to disagree, we've ended up with a really good relationship because of that. So that's the Disney model basically. It's just keeping
Yeah.
people happy.
Yeah. Boy, you guys cover a lot of ground on the show. I'm impressed.
It's not usually this far ranging, but it's a lot of fun. But you know what? Actually, you just reminded me of something, and this relates exactly what you guys were talking to a few minutes ago about comments. So when COVID started, and I did a lot of mainstream media, social media, blog posts, all about how in Canada, at least, employers were really putting themselves in jeopardy because they were laying employees off when they didn't really have the right to do that. So in Canada, that becomes a constructive dismissal. And these quote unquote cost cutting initiatives ended up costing them far more than they saved. So I went online, and one angry small business owner made some really, really scathing comments about, ambulance chasing lawyers and all that type of thing. So instead of either ignoring it or deleting it or responding in kind, I invited him to give me a call. And we had a great phone call and ended up meeting for, I forget if it was lunch or a beer at some point. And he probably would have become a client if he was in the process of selling his business and retiring. But the point is, even the negative comments can actually lead to a client relationship.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know, Mark, if you want to jump in on
Yeah,
that, I'd love to talk about
I'm
that as well.
go back to the Disney thing because I'm
Yeah.
probably one of the examples. Wasn't a big Disney guy. I took my oldest, who's now in his 40s, when Disney in just opened, and they didn't have all the parks. The just had the Magic Kingdom park that was open in Florida, and then I went
Yeah.
back again with my youngest son. I guess he was 9. And we booked about a week down there, and we got in, and the night we got in, it was horrible timing. It was pouring rain. It was late at night. Get to the room that we booked, and the air conditioning didn't work, and everything was just a mess. Right. So next day, contact the front desk and say, I got all these problems, and can you do something? So yeah, maintenance guy comes around, tries swapping out the air conditioner. They do it 3 times. They finally get it fixed in 2 days. So I had 2 days with no air conditioning. Anyway, we go around the park. And the one quick side story I want to share is, and I think I've told you this, Stuart. What I was fascinated by walking around Disney was you remember all the commercials, all the laughing, happy kids, right? All I saw was crying, screaming kids throughout the park, including
parents,
including my kid, right? But when it was all said and done, we were checking out, and they said, "Oh, here's an envelope for you, Mr. Robinson." What's that? I said, "Well, we're very upset and concerned about what your experience was like here. So we've given you a certificate that's good for ever, lifetime, for 3 free days, accommodation, park passes, everything.
Oh yeah.
You can use it now. You can use it 20 years from now. You can pass it on to a relative. That's all fine." So you're right. That's the type of customer service that Disney does present for sure.
You never told me that story, actually. That's phenomenal.
It's a good deal.
Yeah, it's still we haven't used it.
It's only increasing in value, so hold on.
I know.
Exactly.
Stock. Stuart, to your point about the review, though, like, I think it's awesome that you engaged on that. And I think a lot of people wouldn't engage. I talk to a lot of lawyers who they'll get a negative review and they're afraid to do or say anything about it. It's like a hand grenade that they don't want to hold. But like, there is this notion of like keyboard courage. And, it's easy to be a tool when you're online and be like, I don't know if you know this guy. I'm going to snap off this horrible response, enter, and then you go and deal with the rest of your life. But when somebody actually talks to you about it, it's very hard to be a complete jerk to someone when you're face to face or messaging via email or having a phone call. So that kind of engagement is something that a lot of attorneys are not willing to do. But if you do, like, you can have really positive outcomes like that. And I have talked to other attorneys who have taken a negative review, talked to that person, and either got a client out of it or referrals.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it can be a great tool. It's everything you guys have said, and you guys have said it better than I could. It's part of it is just being out there. It's being yourself, being authentic, and engaging, right? Because like all this stuff, like right now, 3 of us are having a really fun chat, and hopefully people are going to watch it. But at some point, you need to actually engage with people to have them become clients or referral sources.
Right. Right.
Absolutely. So I wanted to just quickly ask Jared a question because we're both in the same industries. We do the same type of work. We all talk about AI, and I've engaged and embraced a lot of AI components. And one of my new favorite toys, if we call it that, is Opus AI. Because we take our shows, like this show will be, after it's put up in full version, I'll take this show and I'll put it into Opus and I'll get 15, 20 shorts out of it that we can use on all the different platforms. Now, are you a fan of this? Do you think that's a good idea, or what are your thoughts?
We're kind of like, we still do both. Like we use Opus, and we also do a little bit of manual work to cut down to video shorts as well. But I think it's becoming increasingly difficult to rely on like traditional people to do that work. So I think the best model is to use the AI tools when they're available. But just like with lawyers who have to worry about hallucinations and fake law firm citations, like have somebody overseeing that process just to make sure the stuff that goes out is correct. And obviously I'm sure you're doing that. But yeah, there's so many great tools out there that I think you'd be foolish at least not to look into it and try it out.
Right. Exactly. That's our we don't push the send button until it's been reviewed. And we've been lucky. At least my experience with Opus has been, I've only maybe had to edit one or two that just didn't pick the right spot. What I really like about Opus is the ranking system, because I love that they rank on the catchphrases, on the titling, and will make suggestions to say, well, this is a better title for this caption or for this short.
It's a good tool, and I think to your point, like that's what people who are trying to do it manually, they'll struggle with. Like they'll be like, all right, what do I call this?
Yeah.
Or like, what hashtag should I use? That's tough for people to figure out. And if you get some program that has that information effectively embedded into it that you can access, like that's a really good idea.
Brilliant.
Interesting. Yeah, we couldn't do a podcast in this year without talking about AI. So thank you for making sure we covered that up.
Every single podcast, webinar, conversation. Like, you got to hit AI at some point. Can I
Yeah.
tell you guys a quick story? Is that
Sure.
cool?
Of
So,
course, go for it.
my mom calls me all the time with legal questions. So I've like, I haven't practiced law in like 20 years. So she called me the other day, asked me some estate planning question, and I'm like, yeah, I think it's this. But again, disclaimer, I haven't practiced law in 20 years, so I have no idea. So then she went on ChatGPT and found the answer and clipped it and sent it to me in a text. And she's like, you're wrong. And I'm like, don't ever text me again about a legal question.
That's
Like, just
awesome.
rely on your precious ChatGPT.
And you had your mom on your podcast, which I thought was kind of cool as well. I
Yes, she wouldn't be
I
on video, but I had her on the show.
I listened to that and I thought, well, that'd be kind of cool. I saw my mom in Montreal yesterday. I thought that could be kind of fun. So at some point, Mark, we got to talk about doing that.
Oh yeah.
Um, oh,
My kids are currently asking for a segment, and I'm like, I'll work you in.
ooh, that could be good. Because how old are your kids?
My kids are young; they're like 10 and 13.
Right.
So I wouldn't put them on video or whatever. But we've done. I don't know if you guys remember when Succession was out, the TV show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had them read Succession quotes on one of the shows. We called it Succession Children's Theater. So
Oh, I got to look that one up.
that was really funny. But that was their only like mainstream appearance.
Right. Until now.
Until now. Yeah, we're working on something new.
That's kind of cool. So I got one other thing I was going to ask you because we talked a lot about podcasting, and so you're talking to a lawyer or again anybody, and you're encouraging them to start podcasting. And
Yeah.
again, you guys probably get this a lot more than I do, but I've had people say, "Well, I tried." I did a couple of blog posts. I did a few of these, and nobody responded. I had no listeners, no viewers, whatever it is. What do you tell people who start saying, "Well, it's just not worth it, not worth the effort at this point"?
I mean, I'm happy to let you go first, Mark, and I'll add on.
We've had this discussion, but basically, what I think people don't get when they're in the space of podcasting or video, it's not the audience that's watching it today. It's the library that you're building. You build that YouTube channel out with a lot of content, and they're going to come and they're going to find you, and they're going to stumble across a short, and then they're going to start watch. So we look at the metrics. I use YouTube mainly to really measure what we're doing with the shows. And we look at, obviously the likes, the subscriptions, all that stuff, the comments. There's where, from our side, and I think you're the same, Jared, comments are important to us because if people are commenting, they're watching, and that's the whole goal is to get them to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because it is frustrating, but I feel like content marketing has always been this way, whether it's podcasts or blogs or anything anybody's ever done, is that when you're starting out, your audience is zero. And it's hard to go from zero to something else and have expectation that's going to happen in like a week or a month.
Yeah.
It's a long-term build, and you have to be consistent about it. I tell people two things. Like one, like it's kind of a grind to get people to listen to anything. I mean, when I started doing podcasts, there were maybe like 5 legal podcasts. Now there are like thousands, probably.
Yeah.
So the audience is like completely different, a lot more fragmented. But if you can do it consistently, if you can consistently promote it in different ways, like you'll draw an audience. And I also tell people like, hey, if you want an audience faster, then you can start paying for advertising. You could put an SEO campaign behind what you're doing. And it's just what people want and what kind of expectations they have. But as I said before, it doesn't have to be like a massive audience. If you're a lawyer who's using a podcast to try and get business, which I think is what most lawyers want to do, you could have a smaller audience if it's the right people, and you'll get referrals and you'll get clients from that. And just to echo Mark's point, which I think is really important, one of the awesome things about audio, video, written content on the web is that it just stays there forever, basically. It's like evergreen. And I've never had somebody who reached out to me and was like, hey, I listened to your podcast. It was cool. And they listen to one episode. People tend to binge these things. So they listen to like 4 or 5, 6 different episodes, and then you kind of got them hooked.
Yeah. Well, and I think like it gets back to, when I started, trying to build my profile as a young lawyer in the early 2000s, and content marketing meant either writing articles for newspapers or physically attending conferences and speaking at them. But as you know, I had a great mentor on that side of my practice. She said this to me. She said, "You're not going to bring in, you know, she said, I'll give you, what did she say? I think $50 if someone, you know, retains you tomorrow after you speak at this conference. But they're going to see you speak at conferences. They're going to read your
Right.
articles, and now, of course, we expand that out to they'll see your social media posts, your podcast, and everything else." And they get to know you. And as you guys have all explained, you know, they also get to know you, your personality. And it's a process. And over time, and I've seen it, it does lead to work. And people say, I've been watching you for years, I've been reading your comments, your columns for years, whatever it is. So it's definitely a marathon, not a sprint. So yeah, I've had this conversation with a lot of, especially younger lawyers, that, you know, just keep at it. You know, if you don't like it, don't do it. Same if you don't like golfing, then don't take clients out to golf. But if you enjoy it, then just keep doing it, and it will pay off.
If I may say quickly, like one of the other things is that so early 2000s is when you started doing this. Me too. Like I started like mid to, early to mid 2000s is when I started getting into content marketing basically. And I had one of the first Twitter accounts for a lawyer. And I was an early adopter of LinkedIn. And I tell people all the time now, you don't have that opportunity anymore. So it's a little bit of a different marketplace, a little bit more fragmented. But I also tell them like, look at the Marvel Cinematic Universe, for example. Everybody in the world was basically watching the Avengers in like 2019. Now these movies come out and they have maybe like a third of the box office. Does that mean that Disney's going to stop making MCU movies? Of course not. It's still viable. It's just viable in a different way. So I tell people like, hey, you got to temper your expectations a little bit, but you can still grow an audience in this environment.
Yep. I can just weigh in quickly on that. We had another podcast that we used to do, a family law lawyer. Stuart knows who I'm talking about. And we had hired a consultant that was going to try and help raise our audience. And this lawyer was in Markham, so an area in Toronto. And so he's not drawing, clients from across Ontario. He's drawing clients from within, basically 50 kilometers of where his office is. So this consultant came in, one of the shows came in with over 100,000 viewers live. And I'm going, this is impossible. I mean, this is so Natalie, who does SEO and does websites, she dug into it, and that's my boss partner. She dug into it and discovered that this person had paid for the viewers, and they were all South America and all that stuff. But the lawyer, instead of getting upset about that, he's going, well, that's still good. I got 100,000 viewers. I said, yeah, 100,000 viewers that are never going to retain you. If I get you, and I've told this to Stuart, if I can get you 10 viewers that are within 10 kilometers of your office, I'm doing a goddamn good job. Right? That's the bottom line. If I get you 100,000 people from China, it's meaningless.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's also the conversion rate, right? I mean, look, we track where our clients come from, and by far, most people find us, through some sort of online search, whether it's Google or whatever. But then when you drill down, you see, the highest conversion rate, of course, is referrals. But after that, you can see, and it's views, hits, etc. Doesn't matter. So you just got to keep doing it and get the right audience, not the biggest audience. I think we're all preaching to the choir on this one, so we can probably
people love vanity metrics, though. That's the problem. Like Mark is right. Like if I talk to a lawyer and they get 100,000 people, are going to be like, "Damn, that's amazing," and they're not going to dig into like, "Well, who were these people?"
Yeah, well, it's true, because you're one of the few guests who didn't ask how many viewers we tend to get. Most people, that's one of the first things they ask us.
I don't care. I just like you guys.
Well, the feeling is definitely mutual. I guess we should probably wrap things up. Unless then, Mark, since you're live, I can ask you this. Anything else you wanted to cover before we wrap up?
I think I just want to check with Jared and wondering, is he going to be checking out Roger Daltrey's tour, or in the end, or the last two tour?
My biggest problem is, like, I don't know that I would be able to get anyone to go with me to a show. Yeah, like my kids don't want to go. My wife is not into the Who per se, and then my friends are all old and boring. Even if they're listening to
what
this,
state are
guys,
you in?
You're old and boring. I'm in Massachusetts.
So, are you a legal state for pot?
Yes, we are.
Oh, so then why? Who do you don't need anybody to go with you? couple of joints, get your ticket, and have fun.
All right, I'm gonna do it. I'll
Jared, if
videotape
you're
my
not,
interactions.
you're not that far. Despite my earlier comments about the Who, I do like them. I'll go with you. So,
Yes. All
there
right. All
you
right.
go.
Stuart and I are going to the Who concert.
Where are
Mark
you
it
exactly in
down.
Mass? Yeah, where are you?
I live about 20 miles north of Boston. I live in a town called Beverly, which most people don't know, but it was what Beverly Hills was named after, believe it or not.
Oh,
No,
wow.
And
really?
then we are the next town over from Salem, which
Oh,
everybody knows.
yes.
I so I know I actually know the area very well. Growing up
Oh,
in Montreal,
great.
we had great family friends who were in Marblehead, which I assume you will know.
Oh, I know Marblehead. Yes.
Yes. It's funny how when you're a kid, you just, your life experience you assume is sort of indicative of the world. So in my world,
Everyone's. Yeah.
we would kind of go to Florida, Toronto, and Marblehead. So those were the three big cities that I knew of.
I mean,
So
that sounds beautiful to me. What a life.
I
All
Yeah.
right,
was
so we're
thinking,
we're going to the Who concert though. I'm excited. Boston
uh,
Garden. What do you think?
oh, Boston Garden.
Yeah, for
I don't know.
TD
As long as
Garden,
nobody's
whatever they
wearing
call it
Bruins
now.
sweaters, then I guess we're good.
You could
Uh,
wear your Canadians jersey. You'll be fine. Don't worry. Canadians,
I
Maple
may not
Leafs. What
escape
are we
alive,
doing?
but all right. So,
Wait,
and
what?
actually, Mark, you brought this back to music, which I was going to anyways, because Jared had a great show where they talked about misheard lyrics. So I was going to ask you,
Yes.
Jared, and Mark will give you a shot as well. Obviously, your favorite misheard lyric.
I feel like any lyric in "Smells Like Teen Spirit" is probably my favorite misheard lyric because I don't understand a single one.
Good answer. Mark, do you have one?
Oh, when you ask that, my mind, I used to have tons of them, and I just can't pull one out right now to say. I know there's a bunch that when we go off air, I'll go, oh, I remember this one or this one or this one. So I'm sorry,
Can,
Stuart.
Mark, you're
Well,
on top of this whole thing. You can edit it in afterwards.
you took the words out of my mouth. Things that you can just add a video clip at the end, but that's funny how your mind draws a blanks. I love misheard lyrics. I've been all like for years. I've been collecting them, and I'll tell you guys
Really?
probably my
Huh.
favorite. I just make a note of them in Evernote or somewhere. They always crack me up. But probably my favorite one, if you remember the song called "Up Where We Belong," but it was Joe Cocker and a female, and I
Jennifer
forget who the
Lawrence.
female was.
Yeah, Jennifer Warren.
Yes, yes. And it was from a movie. I can't remember what movie it was. But the song was Up Where We Belong. And so apparently the real lyric is Love lift us up where we belong. And this was a long time ago. So I was a kid and I always heard it as Doug Richter is up where we belong. Uh, and I always assumed that if I watched the movie one day, I would find out who Doug Richter was and what the story was behind it.
That's funny.
And then of course I never watched the movie and found out that I was totally off anyways, but it stuck with me forever.
Okay, I thought Doug Richter was like some obscure Canadians player or something,
No.
like a defenseman from the late '60s. All right, good. I was like, wait, who is that?
Yeah, no, the closest I came up with was Mike Richter, the goalie for the New York
Yes,
Rangers. Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
So there you go. So Jared, you know hockey. You knew there was a hockey connection there,
I know a little bit. I know enough to get by.
right? Fair enough. All right. So I guess we should probably wrap things up. So I guess, Jared, I mean, look, people can find you everywhere, but is there anything specific you want to mention?
I mean, people can type in my name and find me on Google. And then redcavelegal.com is my website. And then the new podcast is called Legal Late Night, so you can check it out. We have a lot of fun on there.
Yeah, I definitely encourage people to check out Legal Late Night. It is probably my favorite podcast at this point. So,
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
and I'd say that quite genuinely. And Mark, you get a chance to plug yourself in front of the camera for a change.
Yeah, that's a switch. So yeah, LegalTube. If you're looking for video production, podcasting, we do all of that at LegalTube. Digital M Space is our website design, development, and SEO company, and then of course the mother company, our parent company, is lawyerlocate.ca. So if you need legal help in anywhere across Canada, we can provide you a free referral to top lawyers in every category of law. We list 8 major categories and over 250 subcategories of law, so you can get a very specific legal advice if you need it.
Cool. Well, guys, thank you both. That was a really, really fun conversation. So I appreciate both of you guys doing this.
I had a blast. Thank you.
My pleasure.
All right. That's a wrap for episode 92. So thank you to Mark and Jared again for being my guests. Thanks to our production team, as always, for putting the show together. And of course, thanks to all of you guys for watching or listening to the show. Please subscribe and like our podcasts and our YouTube channel to get updates. And check out the rest of Rudner Law's social media to keep up to date on employment law issues in Canada. And to quote one of my favorite hockey broadcasters, the pleasure was all ours.
At Rudner Law, we want people to treat their employment relationships as legal relationships and make informed decisions rather than assumptions. Keep up to date on Canadian employment law issues by following us on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok, liking our Facebook page, subscribing to our YouTube channel, and signing up for our newsletter. Past episodes can be found on YouTube, on our website, and archived on Facebook. And if you like our page or subscribe to our channel, you will receive notifications when the episodes are live. As we always say, none of that replaces legal advice tailored to your specific circumstances. If you think you might need an employment lawyer, you probably do. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us.